Hello students, welcome back to the channel. So today we will learn about ledger entries. So before we start with how the accounts are how the transactions are being posted on the ledger accounts, so let me show you how the ledger account looks like. So if you see, we have a very simple example of and a very classic example of how a ledger account looks like. So in the very middle top of the account, we have the name of the account. On the left hand side is the debit side of the account, and on the right hand side is the credit side of the account. And this is divided into two parts, as I mentioned, debit side and credit side. And on the debit hand side, we have date, particulars, journal folio, and amount. And similarly, on the right hand side or the credit side, we have date, particular, journal folio, and the amount that is there on the sides. So before we start with the ledgers, so what we need to do is we need to post the journal entries. So as we have already learned how the journal entries are being posted in our last video, in our last session. So we will use the same problem. We will be using the same transactions that we had used while preparing the journal entry, and we will be doing the ledger today. So the very first transaction is the starting of business with the cash balance of 2 lakh rupees. So what should be the journal entry for that? It is cash account debit to capital account. So what should be and how it should be looking like in the ledger? So in the cash account, we are debiting the cash against the capital. So cash account debit to capital. So we are writing it on the debit hand side because we are debiting the cash. Cash account is being debited. So cash account debiting against to capital account of 2 lakh rupees. And then in a very similar way, if I go to the capital account is getting credited over here. So here is the capital account. If you see capital account, and we are crediting it against the cash. So if we write it as by cash account 2 lakh rupees. So what is the entry that we have learned? It is cash account debit to capital account. So in the capital account, we are crediting the transaction by putting it in the credit side against cash account, and in the cash account, we are putting it in the debit side as to capital account. So this is how we are doing it. So what is the next transaction that has happened? So the next transaction is opening of an account into a bank of ABC. So in the ABC bank, एक account open किया गया है. Say for example, what is the amount that is being used? 80,000. So with an amount of 80,000, a bank account has been opened. So what should be the entry? What should be the journal entry? The journal entry is bank account debit to cash account. So in the books of in the account of bank, so bank account debit to cash account by 80,000, and in by cash account, similarly the bank is being credited. So since the cash account is being credited, bank account debit to cash account, so in the cash account we are crediting it by putting the amount on the credit side of the account as by bank account 80,000. Now the third transaction is goods purchased on credit of 30,000 from XYZ Fashions House. Okay, so what should be the entry? The entry is purchase account debit to MS Fashions House. So if I go to the account, purchase account debit to MS XYZ Fashion House. So in the purchase account, we are debiting it against XYZ Fashion House, and we are crediting the XYZ Fashion House with the similar amount of 30,000 that we have purchased against the purchase account. So the entry was purchase account debit to XYZ House. So XYZ Fashion House we are crediting by putting the purchase account on the credit side of amount 30,000. Now what is the next entry that we have? We have purchase of machinery. So how the entry will be passed on for the purchase of machinery? So we are going to open an account of office machines. So what is there? We have purchased the account. How we have purchased? Paid through check. So the entry is office machinery account debit to bank account. So in the bank account, we are crediting it in this manner by office machinery 20,000, and if we go to the office machinery account, we are debiting it by this thing, by we are debiting it as to bank account 20,000. So this is how we are putting the transactions in the ledger format. So this is how the ledger formats are being done. So what is the next entry that we have in place? After the machineries, we have paid the rent. So what should be the journal entry for the rent? Rent account debit to bank account. Why bank account? Because the amount is being paid through check. So if the check is being involved, so in that case, bank is getting involved. So what should be the entry? Rent account debit to bank account. So in the bank account, you see, we are crediting it as by rent account over here as 5,000, and then if we see the rent account, which is over here, I guess, let me see, yes, in the rent account we have paid the we have made a payment through bank, so it is to bank account 5,000. So this is how the transaction is being recorded in the ledger for the rent. Now what we have the next entry as a next entry, sale of goods on credit to MS Raju Brothers. So since the sale is on credit, what should be the entry? MS Raju Brothers account debit to sales account. So what are the accounts that we need to check? We need to check on the sales account and the Raju Brothers account. So in the sales, we have by Raju Brothers as a credit side, on the credit side of 10,000, and in the Raju Brothers, we are debiting it by writing it Raju Brothers account debit. So we are putting the transaction on the debit side against what? Raju Brothers account debit to sales. So that is why we have sales coming up in place over here, to sales account 10,000 rupees. So this is how the transaction of the credit sales being recorded, where the debtors account has been opened and the sales account has been opened, and the transactions are being recorded in the sales account and the debtors account. So what is our next entry that has transaction that has happened? It is cash sales of 15,000. So what should be the entry for the cash sales? The entry should be cash account debit to sales, just the way we did it in our last class. So how should be the ledger accounts being posted? So go to the cash account and we need to update it as cash account is being debited. So cash account debit to sales account 15,000, and in the sales account we see by cash account 15,000. So this is how the transaction for the sales, the cash sales is being recorded as 15,000 over there. Now what is our next entry that is there? Paid cash to XYZ fashion houses. Okay, so we have made the payment through cash. So what should be the transaction? So the transaction should be XYZ fashion house account debit to cash account. So where is the cash account here? So XYZ fashion house account debit to cash account. So in the cash account we are updating it as XYZ fashion house as 30,000, and in the XYZ account, where is it? Yes, so we are making the payment. So cash account debit to XYZ fashion house. So in the XYZ fashion house, the transaction is being posted on the debit side as to cash account 30,000. Now what is the entry that we have in place? Received check from MS Raju Brothers. Okay, so since we have received the payment through check, that means my bank is getting involved, my bank account is getting involved. So the entry is bank account debit to MS Raju Brothers. Okay, so let's check on the bank account. So on the bank account, we see as to Raju Brothers on the debit side, we are debiting the bank account over here. To Raju Brothers account, 10,000. And if I go and check the Raju Brothers account, we see we are crediting the account of Raju Brothers by 10,000 by putting the transaction as by bank account of 10,000. So that is how we are putting the transaction of this payment that we have received. Now what's the next entry? Okay, the next entry is salaries paid in cash. So that means my salaries account is being getting involved at my cash account. So the entry for the salaries payment is salaries account debit to cash account. So how the entry will be placed on the accounts? So in the cash account, it should be by salaries account 6,000. And if I go to the salaries account, it should be showing as on the debit side, salaries account debit. So on the debit side as to cash account 6,000 rupees. That is how the transactions are being recorded on the account. Now, once all the transactions are being recorded, now we need to match off the accounts. So what do you mean by match off the accounts? So what we are doing over here is, if I exclude this transaction, if I exclude this row of buy balance sheet 99,000, so we see on the debit side we have the transactions recorded as 2 lakh and 15,000, and on the credit side we have transactions of 80,000, 30,000 and 6,000. So we can clearly understand the debit side amount, the total of the debit side amount is higher. So what we did is, what we need to do is, we need to update the amount of the side of the total which is higher. जो साइड का टोटल ज़्यादा रहेगा वो अमाउंट हम लोग and the total column update कर देंगे. You remember in the journals that we did as a amount of one single line on the top and two double and the double liner on the bottom, and we need to update the total. So exactly that is how we need to do the same while doing the ledger as well. So I updated the amount over here as 2,15,000. So that is how we need to do it over here of 2,15,000, and the same amount needs to be updated on the credit side total. And once we need to update the amount over here as a total of 2,15,000, we need to put the rest amount, the balancing number, at the very last column of. So in this case we have a balance of 99,000. So at the very last column, at the very last row, we need to update this amount of the balancing number. Note that if there are any transaction that needs to be recorded or you have missed it, that should be recorded above this line. You cannot have any transaction being recorded after the balancing number has been updated. So all the transactions, if you have left out any, if there are any mistakes, that all needs to be done above the balancing number, and the balancing number amount needs to be rectified, and then it needs to be updated. So once this balancing number is updated on the credit side, so since this is a cash account which is a debit balance account, so we have the balancing amount on the credit side of 99,000. So on 31st of January 2025, on the cash account the balancing number came is 99,000. So what we need to do is, on 1st of February this 99,000 should be transferred as the balance BD, and the date is 1st of February. So over here it is the balance CD, balance carried down, and over here it's balance BD. It's balance brought down of 99,000, and then in this case you cannot have any transaction above this on the very similar terms, above this on the of this particular month, of this particular transaction, once you are broughting down the balance of 99,000. So in the next month, say for example in the month of February, there will be multiple transactions for the cash. All those transactions will be coming at the very next lines of the cash account. So this is how the cash account looks like. Similarly, in the bank account, if we see, we have a debit side of 80,000 and 10,000, and on the credit side we have somewhere around 20,000 and 5,000 transactions amounting to. So the rest amount of the total of 90,000 has been updated as the total, and the balancing amount is of 65,000 is being updated on the very last date of the month as balance carried down, and this amount is being moved to the next row just below the total as the very next month's date, that is 1st of February, and the balance of 65,000 has been brought down for the bank account. Now if I go to the third account, that is the capital account, so what is there? The entry was 2 lakhs that we have updated, and the similar amount has been updated on the debit side of 2 lakh, and then the entire transaction of is the balancing amount, balance carried down, and then this amount has been transferred to the credit side of on the date of 1st of February as balance brought down of 2 lakhs. Similarly, for the purchase account, we had a purchase of 30,000 which has been carried forward to the next month as 30,000. We have the balancing amount being transferred on the credit side as carried down, and this same amount of the carried down amount has been transferred to the as the brought down number in the for the next month. Now if I look for the similar transaction for the machine account, so what should be the total? The total is on the debit side as 20,000, and then the balancing amount of 20,000 is being carried down, and then it's being again transferred to the debit side on the 1st of February as a balance brought down amount of 20,000. Now if I look for the next account, what is there? That is the XYZ fashion house. So in this case what has happened, we have purchased from them of 30,000, and then we have made the complete clearance of the payment through cash. We have paid everything of 30,000, so there is nothing due, there is nothing open on the account. So in this case the debit side and the credit side is equal, so there cannot be any balancing amount being carried forward or brought forward in this case. So since the debit amount and the credit amount is equal, so we are just going to tie it up as in this manner. So, and there will be no brought down or carried down amount to be carried forward for the next period of time. So there won't be anything for the next for the 1st of February over here. Similarly, if I see for the rent account, we have paid a rent of 5,000 in place, and once the payment of rent is being updated to bank account, the balancing amount of 5,000 is being reflecting on the credit side as by balance CD of 5,000, and then this amount has been transferred to the debit side of the next month. The carried forward is being brought down to the next side. So what has always been happening, if you see, the balance brought down or carried down, when it's being transferred to the next period of time, it is going to the opposite side. If the balancing amount is on the debit side, the balance CD is on the debit side, the brought down numbers, the brought down balance will be going to the credit side, and the vice versa. If the balancing number is on the credit side, if the balance CD is on the credit side, the balance BD is going on the debit side. So that is what we have learned today. That similarly for the rent, if since the balancing number is on the credit side, you see the next amount, the opening amount, is being transferred to the debit side of 5,000 in place. So this is how we pass on the ledger entries. So as a refresher, ledger entries are nothing but just the journal entries being posted separately on the accounts. Instead of posting single journal entries, we are posting it as a ledger entries. So why ledger accounts are necessary? So if you see, we have multiple transactions being happening on different accounts. So there are multiple layers of accounts. So say for example, on this transaction, the cash is getting involved. On this transaction, on 20th of Jan, cash is being getting involved, and then on 31st of Jan, salary is being paid in cash, so cash is getting involved. Similarly, on 8th of Jan, bank is getting involved, and then on 12th of Jan, purchase of machinery through check, that means again bank is getting involved. So in similar manner, there will be multiple days where multiple transactions will be happening and similar accounts might be getting in use. So उनको सबको एक जगह पे ट्रैक करने के लिए कि एक पर्टिकुलर अकाउंट पे एंटायर पीरियड में कौन सा ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ है, सो एज अ होलिस्टिक पिक्चर, टू गेट द होलिस्टिक पिक्चर, उसके लिए हम लोगों को ये लेजर बनाना पड़ता है. To get the entire holistic number, to get the holistic view of the account. So for that we cannot get through journal. So for that is the reason why we need to prepare the ledger account. Ledger accounts gives us the entire details कि उस account पे उस particular period of time के लिए क्या क्या transactions हुआ है and उस account का net balance कितना है. So that is something that we need and we can only get from ledger accounts, and this is not possible through journal. So hope this class is being understood. आप लोगों को कुछ भी queries रहेगा, please reach out to me on the comment section. I will definitely answer them. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.